Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today with this video Learn to Draw. My name is Linda and I'm going to take you through some exercises, some drawing exercises, and give you some drawing tips to either help you get started with drawing or maybe improve the drawings that you're already doing. One thing that I notice people will ask sometimes is drawing an innate skill, a God-given talent perhaps, or is it something that you have to work at? I think it's a little of both. I know of people who have, it comes easy for them and they pick up the skills very easily and they're able to draw very well, but they still have to practice, practice, practice and learn a lot of the tips and skills. So I'm thinking today whether you are a seasoned artist and have been drawing for a while or whether you are just beginning, you will find some information in this video helpful. So I'm excited to get started. Go ahead and get your pencils, your paper, get things ready, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's spend a little time looking at some drawing supplies. I want to show you, first of all, some pencils. Different kinds of pencil that you can use. And today, if you just have a 2B pencil, just a regular writing pencil, that's fine. I would kind of hedge away from using a mechanical pencil for drawing right now. But I wanted to show you a variety. You can go and get sets at Michael's or Joann's, a lot of different places. You can order them online. And if you will notice, when you order a set, it might be a little confusing. You're going to look and say, well, there's different codes on here. This one says 6B. This one says 5B. This one, I believe, says 3H. So to let you know what that means, when it says a B, it's how soft and how dark the lead is, how soft it is, so it'll make really dark marks. And the higher the number, the softer the lead. When it says an H, that means how hard it is. So, the higher the number, I think this 3H will make a much lighter line than the 6B. So real quick, let me show you that. I'm going to turn to a page here. If I took the 3H and I wanted to make marks, can you see how light that is? Now this is okay for sketching. You just want to make some light marks, that's okay. Then if you go to the 6B, I'm using the same amount of pressure, and look how much darker. So this is just a way that you can get lighter and darker values in your drawings. And I just didn't want you to be confused if you got a set and you weren't sure what those different numbers meant. Okay, so let's look. Those are pencils. One other pencil is, and I'll show you this later, is a Sketch and Wash. I'll show you how it works. It's a graphite pencil, but when you add water to it, it turns into kind of a wash or a watercolor. So it's kind of a watercolor pencil, only it's graphite. Kind of fun. The next thing is, make sure you always have some kind of pencil sharpener. Just a simple little sharpener works. You don't have to have your pencils just razor sharp, but if you break a lead or something, it's good to have one of these. The next thing is erasers. My favorite, well, first of all, here's art gum. This was a white magic eraser. It doesn't look white anymore because I've used it quite a bit, but this is a really good one. And my favorite is the kneaded eraser. The reason I like that is because I can get it dirty and just stretch it out, and I'll still have clean spots that I can use. And what you can do is, if you have a drawing and you just need a little tiny area, just pinch it, and you can make yourself a shape that works to erase a little tiny area that you want, or you can make it nice and broad, however you want. This one's neat because it doesn't leave a lot of crumbs on your drawing. This one gets kind of crummy. It will leave crumbs, but it's still doable. This is a good one, the white eraser, and this is the same kind. It's a black eraser, but it's got the same consistency as the white magic eraser. The next item I was going to show you is to draw with, and we'll get into this later in the video, are charcoals. This is a vine charcoal, willow charcoal, and it's very soft, and I've used this a lot for larger drawings or gestural type sketches. Maybe not quite so much for the little fine detail, but this is a really neat to have. Then this is another type of charcoal, and it's compressed charcoal, so it's a little harder. It still makes a nice dark black, but it's just a little different than the vine charcoal. This is a Conte stick. This is something that you can get that in different colors, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later. Then let's talk about, well, first before we move on to what you draw on, let's talk about this for a minute. I'm going to show examples of how to use this. This is a blending stump, and you can see I already used it on the end. It's just rolled up paper, and you can buy them in sets, different sizes, and when you want to blend and do some shading, you can use these. So those are kind of neat to have on hand. The next thing I was going to show you is what to use to draw on, and I would highly suggest getting yourself a sketchbook. If you're going to enjoy drawing, instead of using lots of loose papers laying around, go ahead and invest in a sketchbook. This is Strathmore, and I really love this 400 series. You can see up here. It's got, it's 80 pounds, so it's not super thin. It's got a nice feel to it, a nice tooth. And by tooth, I mean that it's got enough of a grip to it. It's not too slick, but it's got enough of a texture to it that it will just really grip the graphite. It will really make nice marks on here. So this is a good size also. I think this is a 9 by 12, but I enjoy this type. So any other sketchbook is fine, but sometimes you just have to look out for what kind of paper it is. Earlier when we were talking about supplies, and I was showing you the Strathmore Series 400 sketchbook that I really like, I forgot to mention that the artist that drew this picture is a friend of mine. His name is William Rose, and if you've bought one of these, you'll see these in all different sizes on the 400 series. He's a really wonderful artist, but I want to say as a word of encouragement, it was later in life when William decided to try drawing. He had a whole different career. He sat down and started drawing and thought, oh, I'm not too bad at this. I kind of like this. Well, he went ahead and got foundational classes and instruction, and he had an innate ability, but he pursued it further. He honed his skills, and so he just does beautiful, beautiful pencil drawings. Here's an exercise I would like for you to do. This is called blind contour drawing, and it's where you take an object, or it could be a person, or a still life, it could be a landscape, but you try to actually look at that object and draw it without looking at your paper. So I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to be going around these edges. Now, it's not going to turn out to look exactly like this, but that's okay. I'm just loosening up, and I'm pretending that my eyes are kind of touching, like if my finger could touch the edge of each of these. I'm letting my eye kind of see the negative space in between the scissors. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You guys go ahead and get started. You can do this at the same time if you want. Keep in mind, I promise I'm not looking at my paper. I'm just going to look at the object. Okay, this is my blind contour drawing, and it looks pretty crazy, but that's okay. It kept me loose with drawing, and to me that's one of the hang-ups if there's a beginning drawer artist that comes in and they have their pencil gripped real tightly. Now, that may be fine for some techniques, but I want you to start out being looser. So I just went around this. You can't really, well, you kind of tell that it's scissors, but I just let my eye go around it. I want you to try that on an object. Something just, one of the first things that you can grab. Try doing a blind contour drawing just to loosen up. Let's do another exercise by tackling a ball or a sphere. I'm showing you this image. This is what I'm going to be looking at when I'm drawing. If you have something that you can put up, like an orange or an apple or a ball, that would be great. What I'm going to start out with is looking for a shape, and that shape is an obvious circle. I'm going to start off looking at that sphere or the ball, and I'm going to use one of these pencils that I was showing you earlier. I think this is a 3B. And notice how I'm holding the pencil. I'm not holding it just super tight, and I'm not going to press super hard, but I'm going to do something called sketching. And so my sketching, I'm sketching a circle. And by sketching, I mean there's not a perfect line. I'm sketching a circle with multiple lines. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at how can I shade this? And I remember that the ball, the light source was coming from the top, so you have to kind of figure out where your light source is. It was kind of up here. And there was a big shadow around here. And then it had a shadow underneath it. Do you see how lightly I've gotten that kind of outline? I can come in next with a different type pencil, and I can actually start saying, I know I want to be darker over here. Okay, so I'm going to do something. I might press a little harder there. I'm going to do something called cross hatching. Cross hatching is where you, just exactly what it says, you're making little fine lines. You can use different types of pencils. And it's the buildup of these little lines that create your dark shadows. You don't want to press hard, but you just keep building them up. Pretty soon I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put some more dark over here. And I'm just going to keep building that up. If I come to, to me, I think the part about a graphite drawing like this is to just be patient. And, unless you're doing just a line drawing, it's being able just to be patient, and make sure that your pencil, you know when to kind of lift it up. So I'm going to keep working on this one. I'm going to keep working on this. One other thing I'll show you, this is not at all finished, but remember the stump I was telling you about. I could come in at some point and do that. If I said I don't want some of those lines to show, well, I can come in and really smooth it. Do you see how that is blending? Okay, I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to come back. I want you to look at your piece. If you've got a still life set up, or if you're looking at the still shot that I put on there, try to see what you can come up with. And what we're trying to do is to create this flat circle, make it look like it's something three-dimensional. Give the illusion on flat paper that it's something three-dimensional. I'm going to come back after I finish doing the ball and then show you also how you can achieve that with the background. Back to the sphere or the ball that I was drawing. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I started just building layers of cross-hatching and value. Value is something very important in your drawings. You want some light values, you want some dark values. And one thing I did to try to make this look more three-dimensional was I considered my background and what was around the orb or the ball. And I had something very dark where these two edges met, where the light was coming in this way, and where that met, right here, it was light, and where the background met that, instead of just having a line, I was going through and doing some darkening, some dark value back there. And that helps the ball to pop back out so that it looks more three-dimensional on the paper. Now, obviously, I just did this in a few minutes. You can still work on this, and the way you crop it, the way you add more value to it. Even taking, I'll give you a little tip, even taking this eraser, if I decided something was just too dark, I can actually erase things and bring out that lighter highlight with my eraser. This was another one I was looking at a pear with this one. So trying to just get that rounded shape, giving it a place, and it's not just floating, but giving it some kind of place on a table. It had something dark behind it, and there was a shadow underneath it. So your dark areas are always going to be where the shadow is, and where that object touches the table or whatever it's on, that's going to be your darkest right there. And then you just kind of blend it on out. Another way is some people like to smudge. So you might say, oh, I'm going to draw something, and I'm going to draw that really hard. And then I'm going to take a smudge stick, and I'm going to do a little smudging on it. You can smear it. So that's another way that you can achieve some kind of volume by using a smudge stick. Another thing you can use is a Sketch and Wash pencil. The Sketch and Wash pencil, let me just, let's see, I'll draw this where you can see it. Let's say I draw my circle. I'm going to take my water brush. This is a handy little tool to have, but the graphite actually melts. It's almost like a watercolor. So Sketch and Wash, you can turn your graphite into watercolor. Super, super fun. So this might be something you want to try. If you just have your pencils, maybe you're going out somewhere and you want to go ahead and you want to do some drawing and you want to be able to create a watercolor effect. This is a great tool, and that's called a Sketch and Wash pencil. Let's take a quick look at how to draw a portrait. All of our faces are shaped differently. People have round faces, oval faces, square-shaped faces, and those are alterations that you can make as you're drawing this person. But to start with, the basic proportions are that you draw an oval, and I'm just going to show you this real quick. This is an example I did. If I draw an oval for this face, then halfway down between the very top and the chin, I'm going to make a mark that goes across. That's going to be placement for eyes. Then halfway, that's halfway across, is what I meant, and then halfway down this way, vertically, is going to be how your symmetrical face, that's how our face is divided. So that's just a basic premise of how you would start a portrait. You want to keep in mind that your eyes, there should be, I believe, about 5 eyes across if you were to measure. That can vary. Some people have close set eyes, some people have large eyes, so that can vary somewhat. Your ear usually starts at the very, very top where that eye is and comes on down. What you want to look at is, you might think, and I will draw you an example, some people will start a portrait, I'm just sketching this real lightly, but some people will say, well, my eyes are up here. And then this is my face down here. Basically, what we're looking at is from the top of your head, not your hairline. So maybe from here to here is your hairline, but you've got the top of your head to think about. So that's why I'm saying divide that in half. That would accommodate the very top of your head down to your chin. So I know that you may want to do, when you alter things, it may look cartoonish, but if you're wanting to go for just basic proportions, this is how you would start. I did this drawing some time ago. It was of my granddaughter, and she was, I think 3 or 4, maybe 3.5, but you know, her face was much rounder. If you'll notice, I went ahead, she had her hair, it was all down in her face, and she'd been playing outside. There were shadows everywhere. There was a dark shadow behind her. But still, if you could see the top of her head, that's halfway down. And then halfway between that mark and the chin would be her nose, and then her mouth. So those are just some basic proportions, and we will get into how to start one of these drawings in just a second. Here's an up-close example of a portrait I wanted to show you, and it's done with pencil. This was in a book that I have, but I want you to notice how the artist didn't draw hard lines around the mouth, didn't draw hard lines at the bottom of the eye, but rather looked for shapes and shadows. Your eye is in a socket, and you need to think about that when you shade. You don't have a harsh line unless you're putting, you know, heavy eyeliner on and makeup. In nature, you're not going to have a harsh line down here under your eye, and your eyeball is going to be half covered with, or partially covered with, a lid. So I'm just kind of showing you this. We're going to do an exercise on how to approach drawing a portrait and the features. I'm going to do something called the upside down drawing exercise. What I want you to do is to find a photograph, enlarge it, maybe on a copier. And what I did was find 2 photographs, just found this one online, and this was, I don't remember the photographer's name now, but what I did was make copies, and I started looking at these photographs, these portraits, and what our eye wants us to see is that we are going to draw a nose. Okay, well, what if that nose was really just shapes? And that's what it is. If we want to draw an ear, if I say it's an ear, I have preconceived notions of what it's going to look like. If I think it's just made up of shapes, then that's going to be kind of tricking my brain just to look for shapes. So what I did was I put something over it, turned it upside down. I put a thin piece of like a transparent film, and then used a marker. But I went through and I started outlining shapes that I saw. The hair, it's not just individual strands, but it's shapes. The nose, it's got the lighter shape there. It's got the underneath shadow shape. I started looking for darks and lights. I did the same on this portrait. I started it anyway, where I put it upside down and I started looking for shapes. So what I want you to do, and you can use tracing paper on this, something that you can see through to the photograph below, and start just practicing looking for the shapes, outlining them. And it's just kind of a fun exercise to see if you can find those shapes. Now, if I just took the piece like this, got rid of his picture, that's just with shapes, and it's starting to have, you know, it represents that portrait, what that man looks like. It's starting to represent that just by me circling and outlining big shapes. So what I want you to do, and what I'm going to do next, is to take one of these photos. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do, actually, but you've already drawn shapes. You've done that, so take one of them, and I want you to, with your sketch pad, draw these upside down. And by doing that, I'm going to start one over here in just a minute, but by doing that, you're looking and you're not saying, there's a guy's nose, there are his eyes, but you're looking for shapes. Start sketching that in. Where does the line go around his face? Where does that angle go of his shirt? And that collar is just a triangle. Here's another triangle over here. So I'm going to start mine, and then I'll come back. I'll show you how I've progressed with that one. This was the upside down drawing that I worked on. You can tell it still needs some refining. I can see that, you know, his forehead's a lot lighter than what I've got it here in relationship to the rest. His neck is probably darker. I need for his face to pop out a little more. So I can go in and do some refining, but in general, I started with the picture, like I said, upside down, okay? And then it was upside down, and I kind of sketched in some big shapes and some lines that I saw. Then I went ahead, when I thought I had that done, I went ahead and just flipped it over and started working on it right side up to get in more shading. Anytime you think that something's not right and you can't tell what it is, sometimes it helps just to turn it upside down. So if I got a little off kilter with this and I wasn't quite sure about a proportion, I turned it upside down again. It's a pretty good likeness, but, you know, like I said, it needs some more work. Here are some basic tips on how to draw a landscape. I'm going to put this in a box here. I will show you some slides of some different types of landscapes, but let's say that you've got a landscape and you may be looking out your window or outside drawing, or you may be drawing from a photograph. The placement on the page makes a difference. So if you've got a tree right here, something really big right here, that's called the foreground. As it goes higher up and gets smaller, that's called the background. And then you've got the middle ground right in the middle. So you've got the foreground, the middle ground, the background. So this same tree, if it was in the distance on the horizon line, let's say I've got a horizon line up there, that same tree is really going to be smaller and it's higher up on the page. Anything that is closer to you and lower on the page will have more detail. So this tree, you know, may be something that I'm able to see more branches and whatever I'm drawing, or a bush, whatever it is. Up here, it may be no more than just a smudge of my pencil because it's far away and our eyes don't see all the details. That's where I will get into aerial perspective. Perspective that as things go farther away from you, they may get a little foggier. They aren't as detailed. They may look a little... I don't want to say foggy. I'm not sure if that's the right word. But if you're drawing something, that may be an object that's a little smudged or a little out of focus and not quite as vivid and bright as what's in the foreground. Also, if you're drawing landscape and there's land, you're going to know that, let's say there's a field here. As you go up, you're going to get smaller strips of land because you're looking at it at an angle. And that's going to give it depth and give it some distance. Let me show you some examples of this. This is a landscape photograph where you can see that the layers, as they go back, there's an atmospheric fogginess that happens. What's up front is much darker. There's more contrast. I can see individual rocks. As I go farther back, it gets a little foggier, and the final piece in the back, you can tell its distance because of aerial perspective. Also because that large mountain is bigger probably than this little hill mound of rock. But because that's closer to us, it looks bigger than what's in the distance. Here's a drawing by Samuel Earp, and I just found this online and thought it was a good example. It shows how some of the trees that are in front are much more pronounced and defined, and you see some aerial perspective in the background as some of those trees and landscape hills are smudged. One thing I like about drawing landscapes is that nothing has to be perfect because nature is not perfect. It's perfection comes in the organic quality. So if you're drawing a tree or you're drawing some type of landscape, you don't have to get all the edges straight and things don't have to be perfect. That can become the essence of the scene. Imagine that you are in that landscape. Like this one is one that I did a painting of that a couple years ago, but it's very cold and icy, and I can feel the air, the cool, crisp air, and the snow, the crunch of the snow under my feet, and that kind of affects how I might paint or draw that. Here's another one that is the hills in Colorado. So what I'm wanting you to do right now, we're going to do an exercise, and it's going to be a timed exercise. Find 3 to 4 pictures of landscapes, and I want you to practice paraphrasing. How can you get the essence of this landscape down in 30 seconds? And that may mean that you don't fuss over the little grass up here. Maybe that you're looking more for big shapes. Remember how I said to go big first, you simplify. If you had more time, you'd come in with more details. But I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. I'm going to draw, and I want you to be doing the same thing. If you're looking at this video later, you'll have time to stop it, go get your supplies, and come back and do this alongside of me. What I'm going to do with this is, instead of making each picture a whole big page, I'm going to draw 4 kind of large thumbnails, little windows. Let's see, maybe I'll just that one is going to be angled up and down, so it's going to be vertical. So anyway, I've drawn those, and I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to do this one first, and remember, you're looking for the essence of what is going on in this piece. What are the main characters here? What do I need to think about when I'm drawing? So let me get my phone going here, and we are going to time 30 seconds starting now. On this one, I'm not trying to, I'm trying to paraphrase. Like if I were to describe, well, that was 30 seconds and that wasn't very much time. So when I look at that though, I can still add to it, that's fine. But I was trying to get the slant, that foreground, the slant of that hill, and then there was a whole area of trees up here, but I noticed that zigzag in the background to indicate mountains and hills. So I tried to paraphrase that one. Let's do another one. This time, I think I'm going to do this guy right here. So let's go ahead and get started right now. Oh, this makes me nervous. And that one's done. That was 30 seconds, but you got the essence of the trees and you got the essence of there are mountains behind. And I was trying to, I can come in and finish it, but I was trying to show the fogginess of the background. So one more and then we'll stop for this exercise. In fact, on this one, I'm going to do something different. This one's going to be called 7 lines. And that means that I need to express this picture, this landscape, in 7 lines. And a line is whenever you draw something but don't pick your pencil up off the paper. So how can I express this in 7 lines? And I'm not going to time this one, although I'm going to try to work real quickly. So let's get started. Okay, there's 1. Wait a minute. There's 2. There's 3. There is 4. 5. Make that down the middle. 6. 7. So these are just quick sketches. These are not, fancy drawings, but it's kind of fun to see what am I trying to express? How do I paraphrase? When you go out to draw and you're you're out in nature, or even if you're inside drawing from a photograph, look first for what you can paraphrase and how you can simplify. Then you can always hone in on details if you want to make it more realistic or you want to be more fine-tuned on the details. Another tip that I want to show you is something called thumbnails. This is just in my small sketchbook that I lots of times will have with me, but you can just do little small thumbnails if you see some scene that you want to record. And previously we were doing the 20 or the 30-second drawings and the 7-line drawings, but these are just little simple things that I just started putting value in to indicate what the landscape was around me. Those are fun and they're great to have in your sketchbook. You can look at those later and sometimes turn them into a larger drawing that's more complex. Okay, next I would like to talk to you for just a few minutes about different types of charcoal and how you can use them and what their attributes are. This is vine charcoal. You can get it in fat sticks or you can get it in little thinner sticks. This is a compressed charcoal, which is, you can draw with it and it comes off just as black in value, but the vine charcoal is softer. This has been compressed into something with a binder, so it makes it a little more, not as breakable. You've got your charcoal pencil, which you can sharpen to a point if you need to. And then you've got charcoal powder. Okay, so all of these can be used in drawing. And I'm going to show you some examples of what those look like on paper. The choice that you make with these, it's also contingent on what kind of paper you're using. With charcoal, it doesn't really dig into the paper if it's a real smooth surface. So you don't want a slick, glossy paper. Something with a tooth. This is a My Tint paper, but you can buy pads of charcoal drawing paper, and you can tell it has a little bit of a tooth to it, or a little bit of a texture. And this is the paper I've been using. It's just regular, the 400 series that we were talking about. I have a couple of pictures I want to show you, and I just found some of these in books. One is a portrait by Kathy Kolowitz, and this was done in charcoal. And I think it's fair to say that she gets some really nice darks in here. And with charcoal, whether you're using the side of it or coming in with a charcoal pencil, you can get some very dark darks. If you're working with the graphite pencil, you will notice on your paper that it sometimes is a bit shiny, and the dark doesn't have quite the depth to it. Here's another example. This is a detail. portrait, and it was by Courbet, and just beautiful, beautiful depth with the charcoal that was used. And then another quick study by Homer, Winslow Homer. So all of these kind of show the attributes of how you might want to use charcoal. When I use charcoal, I'm usually wanting to create something that is a quick gestural study. So whenever I've been in life drawing classes, I'll have large pieces of paper and I can sketch something very quick. And to do that, there's two different things you can do. First of all, I'm going to show you this. Lots of times you can take the vine charcoal. That will give you some quick gestural marks that you can make on your paper. You can come in later. Lots of times people will mix them. Then you can come in with your compressed charcoal. What I'm going to show you now is just a little bit of this charcoal powder. Let's see if I can get it. I don't get too much on here. But sometimes what people do is they start with a ground. You start with a tinted ground, so you can actually smear this on your paper. Charcoal smears. And that's another thing to consider. When you're drawing with charcoal, do you want to stabilize it and fix it? And you can find in art stores different types of spray that you can put on to fix it. This creates, look at the nice tonal quality of that. And if I want to come in later and I can draw into it, or I have actually done something to where I want to use my eraser. Remember I was talking about this kneaded eraser and how you can make little points on it. So let's say I'm going to look for highlights. Maybe I'm looking at a picture over there and I'm going to look for, here's a highlighted nose. The brow up here. You see how I can come in here and just take away actual parts of this ground. Maybe there's a bottom lip down here, chin. So you can kind of take away or you can add to. I may want to come in later with my charcoal pencil and, I'm adding things to it. I can do cross hatching with the charcoal pencil. I can add the darks, take away for the lights. So these are just a few tips with using charcoal, and I think it's worth exploring. Just be aware that it can be messy, so you do need to have some kind of spray fixative, or make sure you've got wet wipes for your hands. Anyway, I hope you enjoy trying that one out. This is a charcoal drawing I did. I was in a live model class, and this is a smaller one. It's not as big as some of them, but it was a live model and it was like gestural drawings. And as you can tell, I was making quick marks using the side of the different types of charcoal to block in this figure. Last but not least is perspective, and we're going to tackle that. This could be a whole series within itself, but I'm just going to briefly go over what one-point perspective looks like, two-point perspective, and aerial or atmospheric perspective. And I'm going to show you some images here of what some of those look like, and I've kind of diagrammed that out. On the first two paintings, one by Caillebotte and the second one by Van Gogh, you see one-point perspective, and I've diagrammed that out with the point and lines converging to that one point. And then on the third one is Mona Lisa, and this is a painting that we're all familiar with, but it has a good example of atmospheric or aerial perspective. And the last image is one of a photograph, and it shows an illustration of two-point perspective. It's a building where each line converges either to a point on the left or the right side, and you can see how the roof and the sidewalks and everything will converge to those points. You can practice this with just, for instance, a square. Draw a square on your paper. Your dots up here, that's your one point. All lines converge. All corners are going to converge at that one dot. your one point, and then you cut off your box like this and erase the other lines. So you end up with a box. It could have been a box that was really long and gone way out here. But you end up with a box that is bigger in the front and gets smaller as it goes back. And you can apply that to any kind of drawing or painting that you're doing. A 2-point perspective will be something where you have a point somewhere on one side and a point somewhere on the other. And when you draw a straight line, everything goes to that. That could be the side of a house or a building. Even the roof is going to go down there. So have fun with this and look at some different, just be aware when you're out walking around or in your car or whatever, and you're maybe going to do some sketches. Be aware of perspective and how things converge toward a point and they get smaller as they go back in the distance. Here is one that's just a diagram that I'll show you. This is one that was in a book, and that is 1-point perspective. And it's where they put the point right smack dab in the middle of the picture plane, and all the buildings and the train tracks and everything go right to that one point. You can even see the telephone poles in the back, how those go all to that point. Well, we're at the end of our video, and I'd like to do just a brief summary of some things that we covered this past hour. First of all, we talked about various tools that you could use. We talked about shading to create form and the ways of shading that you could use cross-hatching, a blending stump, or even a sketch and wash pencil that would be using some kind of monochromatic washes. We loosened up with contour drawings, and we tackled drawing portraits and some facial proportions. We learned how looking for shapes is more important than trying to draw just what your brain thinks or solid lines. And we covered landscapes. We looked at the foreground, middle ground, and background, and the importance of quick thumbnail sketches to describe the essence of a scene. And finally, we tackled just a little bit on 1-point, 2-point, and aerial perspective. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you are able to use some of these ideas and exercises in your own art practice. Thanks for joining me.